Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and what you're listening to now is my guest for this episode, Simon Mulligan, playing Desafinado on a stunning Steinway. It is just beautiful, and I met Simon because of our mutual connection, Bill Sussman, who's a wonderful composer, and you'll hear a piece of his music at the end of this. My conversation with Simon Mulligan took place in the pub round the corner from the 606 Club, and I've got an episode coming up in the future with the owner of the 606 Club, Steve Ruby, who I interviewed actually in the club. So there's lots of exciting things coming up, and Simon will be telling me about some of his stuff that he's got coming up. He's a very versatile and virtuosic pianist, as you can hear. So I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation. Welcome to Harmonious World.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Simon Mulligan, we're just around the corner from the 606 Club, at which you will be appearing later on.
Indeed, yes. Once or twice a year we play there.
Oh, okay.
I've lost count how many years we have been playing here, because we all feel like underage beer drinking teenagers probably at least 30 years I've been playing.
Oh, goodness me. And did you ever play it when it was in the old place?
No.
Oh, okay. Because that's where I remember it when I was, because I'm a bit older than you, when I was at university, that was our hangout on the King's Road. So in fact, when I came here, I kind of took a little walk down there, and I knew exactly where it was.
Lovely.
But it was almost exactly the same as it is now, just sort of moved a block along.
Right.
So, yeah.
I still write set lists on the back of old menus, and I'll tease Steve. I'll sort of say, oh look, desserts are only £1.25, or look, beef bourguignon for only sort of £3.50.
Yeah.
Wait, I keep these old things from years ago.
So, what's the lineup tonight? Who have you got playing with you?
It's a quartet, tenor sax, drums, bass, me, piano, and these are four old friends. The saxophonist Frank Walden and I were at school together from the age of 9, and we started a school jazz group while we were there. This is St. Paul's School in Barnes, and we, Frank, like me, just continued into music fantastically, and he's a wonderful player, plays all the reeds, everything, and he's worked with all sorts of people. Tom Jones, Amy Winehouse's band he was in.
Oh, right.
He's doing really well, and Justin Woodward is the drummer. Justin is just as talented on the vibraphone as on the kit. Lovely guy, and the bass player is Andy Hamill, who is also a multi-instrumentalist. He may well play mouth organ tonight, or do a solo with using a bow hair from his bowstring, and a kazoo. He's lovely, good, mellow-natured. They're all a nice bunch of guys, and we. It's strange, with my classical work. I've lived in America for a long time now, and rather than putting together national tours of with our group, it's more of a let's just have a reunion and a bunch of mates, and we're oversold tonight apparently out here at the club, which is great. And and yesterday I gave classical recital in my old hometown of Ealing, West London, which is the equivalent in the classical world. So this is the jazz bunch, and like, oh yeah, we'll come to the jazz. I don't like classical. Okay, we'll come to the classical. So it's become a regular fixture mid-July every year.
That's brilliant. In fact, they've put that one up on YouTube, so I watched that.
Oh, the classical,
the classical one,
thank you. Gosh.
So that's it. It's really interesting. In fact, I told this story to somebody this morning. I was interviewing somebody on Zoom, and when I started Harmonious World 4 years ago, I got myself all organised, and I got a microphone, and I got the setup, and I did everything. And one of the things I did was I organised folders. So I'd got a Harmonious World folder for the episodes, then I'd got a classical downloads for when people send me classical music, and I've got a jazz downloads for when people send me jazz music. And I think within about 3 weeks, I'd gone, but I don't know where to put this, because so much doesn't fit in one place. So many musicians don't just do one thing, and even if they do, there'll be an overlap one way or the other, which I think is fascinating.
Which is, I think it's important, because when I was at school, people would say, oh, you need to decide what you're going to do, and I thought, well, I love improvising in general, whether it's the blues or figured bass, Baroque music. I've studied all aspects of that, and my classical piano teachers certainly didn't mind that I did jazz, and vice versa, and you need variety, and I get asked not to do mixture styles in my recital programs, and with an orchestra they'd want a Rhapsody in Blue in the second half and a Tchaikovsky concerto in the first half, say, and it's sort of something between the cracks. And I did a record for Sony Classical a while ago, which I enjoyed making very much. Put an orchestra together with Ealing mates, session players, and musician friends who are all pro orchestral players, and we had a great laugh. And that was intentionally a playlist of untouched Chopin Nocturne and Clair de Lune of Debussy, but I put in my own arrangements of Sting's Fragile and Madonna's Live to Tell and U2's Still Can't Tell, Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For song, and Tis in Heaven, and all good classic, and I enjoyed orchestrating, and so that was me sort of doing my blurring the boundaries bit in the days of crossover. And it was fun. I mean, it sold very well for a classical record, but not very well for a pop record, because it was neither one nor the other.
So. And that is the problem sometimes, that people like to put things in a box, and if they can't, they don't really know what to do with it sometimes. So that is the problem. So you started in Ealing.
Yes.
And then how have you ended up in New York?
Well, I was lucky to start working with the American cellist Lynn Harrell, who became principal at the Royal Academy of Music, where I was studying with Alex Kelly. And Lynn auditioned all the piano players and kindly chose me to do recitals with him, and we went to Asia and America, and I loved New York. I'd been to New York once with my mum in the mid-80s, and it was August and it was humid, and it was like, whoa, this is so crazy, and I thought, I'll like this more when I'm older, and sure enough I did, and then I was also touring with Joshua Bell, playing in the big halls with him, and like every English guy, I love New York, and I thought one day I'll live here, and then so I ended up meeting and marrying an American lady, so that's what I was drawn over there. So and I've been there 20 years now.
Right.
I guess.
Right.
Still feels like the other day. It's nice. It's and I miss things like Joseph Coke plants here in a pump, and and hedges and broken chimney pots.
Yes, yeah. But you obviously come back fairly regularly.
three times a year.
Right.
Just to keep in touch with people, because I don't expect families to fly over to my home there. But I love where we are now, and I'll be, in terms of settling down, I mean, I'm 51 now, and I will be starting as a professor at the University of Maryland. I have to say that my son will tease me for not getting the I'd say the word Maryland, I'd say, of course, Maryland.
Yeah.
And that's next month I begin there.
Right.
So just a couple of days a week. And I've always, the older I've got, and every concert I give wherever I am in the world, I'll always insist really on teaching students or doing any master classes or some sort of I like to keep busy if I'm a million miles from home, right? I don't want to sit in a hotel room, keep me, and I guess passing on my bad habits to students, because I've been very lucky to have some wonderful piano teachers and real diverse group of styles and schools of playing, and in the classical and also the jazz world. I mean, I was on the Wavendon jazz course.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, with Cleo,
yes.
Johnny Duckworth, and lucky to study with John Haller and Bill Lesage and John Taylor.
Wow.
And I was 14 when I did that, and it was eye-opening, and wonderful drummer friend Matt Skeeping, who was at school with me. We had a little trio together, and he was there too, and he obviously I was wide-eyed, and I was the youngest, and he looked after me, and I sort of broke into more modern jazz there.
Bill Lesage was outstanding, lovely. And such a lovely guy, wasn't he?
Lovely man, and he lived not far. He's in Greenford, I think.
Right.
And I see him at Pizza Express in Ealing when it was there.
Yeah.
Lovely man, and so I've been lucky to have all shapes and sizes of piano teachers, and even Lynn Harrell, the cellist, and Josh Bell, particularly Lynn, who I toured with before I met with Josh. Lynn, the sound he could create out of 1 inch of bow or a variety of triple forte to triple pianissimo, that made me think, hey, I'm going to do more things with my playing, expand the range of sound I get. So he was pretty much a teacher of mine too. He didn't tell me how to play, but I had to work at it myself, and so I've always enjoyed collaborating with him.
Brilliant. So we talked earlier about you don't remember the old 606 on the King's Road.
No.
Do you remember the old stables before it was the fancy new theatre?
I must do, because this was 87. I think I went.
Yeah, I think it must. Yeah. I think that was definitely before then. I did a New Year's Eve gig there in the old stables. I played baritone sax, and that must have been about 85, 86, something like that, with Bill Lesage, and I can't remember who the others were. I wish I could, but...
Is it... who would have been Don Rendell from sax? Or?
No, because I was the only sax player. Because that's the point of my story, because I was the sax player, Bill Lesage, drummer, bass player, whoever they were. And I was doing a solo at one point, and I heard an alto player behind me. So I was on the front of the stage, and it was my gig. It was New Year's Eve gig. My parents were in the audience, and I was playing, and I heard an alto player kind of doing like backing things, which it was nice.
Okay.
But I just kind of went, what's going on there? And I just kind of like turned around, and it was John Dankworth, and he came on, and we did the rest of the show together, which was just. And it was, and he afterwards he was like, I'm really sorry I did it like that, but he said I was just. That's what I want, it felt right, and musically it was right.
Yeah.
It was just, a bit of a shock to me. My parents were so chuffed that, So.
And he was gracious, I'm sure, without. Lovely.
Completely, yeah. It was lovely.
Yeah.
So that was nice. But Bill Lesage was I used to see him at the Bull's Head at Barnes and, at 606 and lots of places. So. So we've also discussed, so the person that's introduced us is obviously Bill Sussman, who I've interviewed a couple of times for the podcast, and we worked out that you met him 20 years ago.
Yeah, gosh, I know.
Yeah.
And
I know.
I've seen all that time,
Yeah. But he's a very generous person in terms of giving his time and introductions to people. He's introduced me to several people, which has been really nice. So I'm glad he was able to introduce us.
Yes, thanks for coming.
So,
it's not.
You
don't live too far.
No. It's a short train ride into King's Cross. So the whole thing between classical and jazz. When you teach, do you teach whatever the student wants, or do you always start from a classical perspective on the basis that gives you the grounding and the theory and that sort of thing?
It's this university position is, they asked me specifically to bridge that gap, and lots of these students want to learn transcription, improvisation, and I found it's all in the ears anyway, and it's not a question of I can never do that or I can't improvise. I think everyone can, and it's boldness and just trial and error. And the ground is a common denominator. It would be technical exercises. Sounds silly. I'm a big fan of the exercises of Hannon, Anol, and Pishner.
Right.
And there were lots of composers who write X, but I always was brought up on those, and I still, to this day, do a little sort of 20-minute routine, and I make up my own Pishner style exercises, and I can put my hands on the keyboard and it's almost to diagnose, okay, I slept weird last night, so there's a weird connection here, or this finger's cold on that finger, and I'll make some exercise up just to sort of work it through, like I'm sure a good sports person would do, and you just sort of focus on the areas, and it's noise, it's not music, but it helps immensely with making music, because you have more, I'm sure with embouchure control, having more variety of sound, and so I make sure I say to students, do your scales, and I like to say I can get more good practice done in half an hour that would normally take hours and hours. I'm not a 6-7 hours practice a day man ever. I never have been. Probably wouldn't do me any harm if I did do that, but because I always wanted to have a normal life, So, and a lot of, as I'm sure you'll agree, a lot of music is away from the instrument. And I remember my mum and dad saying, "Are you practicing?" I mean, they weren't those sort of parents, thankfully, but I'd say, "Yeah, I'm just here in the living room, I'm just sitting in a chair, and I'm probably looking like I'm away with the fairies, just and I'm running it in my head, and even flying here on Saturday, I just had cancelled out the plane noise with headphones on, and I'm not listening to anything, just going over, and you get the odd little nerve endings, and I'm not that nauseating, fingers moving on the table all the time, but you just sort of, you just go through the motions, and so that's how I do it, really. I've wavered away from what you're saying.
No, but it's about teaching and learning, and actually the technique of your instrument is an important thing, but as you say, what's more important is your ears, and listening to, because I've found since doing this podcast, I've listened to so much more music, and I have to listen in a different way. I don't just have the music on the radio on. I'm listening, and quite often I will listen to a track, and then I will listen to it again, because I want to. Because I suddenly go, well, wait a minute, that's at the beginning. They did something that they then did at the end, or they referenced at the end, and it's about that, and then applying that to your own playing and that sort of thing. So.
Yes, exactly, and keeping it fresh is so important. I'd hate to be accused of it sounding the same as ever or whatever. And especially, obviously, in this jazz world, you're improvising, you're carving out a version of a piece of music. But same thing in classical. I say this to classical students: we are improvising within classical, because once you trust that gravity or the gravity of time to start the piece, and you flop over the edge and you're on that bobsleigh or slalom run, and you're just going along with the music, and you're always going to be speeding up a little bit here, slowing down there, and that's not bringing into any background noise, acoustics, the quality of the instrument, the audience, phones going, whatever it may be, and you take it all in, as you do when you meet someone for the first time, and you time things, and in other words, don't over practice, have flexibility and a little bit of risk. Because I take great pity in pianists who are not enjoying playing the piano. And you can tell who they are. It's very sad. And because they just the only way I know to play, and that blinker vision look, and hunched over the keyboard, and I've always liked to, what you saw me with video, I would just sit back and keep dead still, and I'd be terrible in a movie because I was like, well, this is how the pianist feels. That said, I've enjoyed doing certain flamboyant things for TV, but it's the reality is you're just the energy's coming through your head and through the tips of the fingers, and it's an interpretation.
Yes. And one of the things that has come out of me doing this podcast is that during lockdown, a lot of musicians were going, well, I'll stream a concert. I'll play a concert at home and I'll stream it to people, charge them a little bit, and then I can make a bit of money. And what they quickly realised is that even when you're performing, in inverted commas, if you don't have an audience, you're not performing, because there's nobody.
Right.
They might be listening, or they might be watching you on Zoom or whatever. But that's not the same as them being in the room.
And during the lockdown, I don't know if you know, I played a different piece of music every night for 400 nights in a row.
Wow.
And my now wife, I'd lost my mum in March 2020 at the start of this whole thing, cancer, and I was living in obviously America, and so I've been back and forth, and this was about mid-May, and I felt fine, I just said, wow, here we are, and I thought, well, I'll catalogue all my music, see finally what's in these boxes, and of course I thought, oh, this is great, this little gem of a Victorian parlour song or whatever it may be, and my son Jasper said, hey, let's do this, and Jackie, my wife, said this, so I called them Simon's Salon Soirees. It's over alliteration. Number one, and I played this Harry, I'm not going to say how to say it, Farjeon, Farjeon.
Right.
A set of pieces called Night Visions, and the first one's called In the Moonlight. And I'm literally just sight reading, and I'm talking to my son holding the phone, and I'd had a couple of gin and tonics, I remember quite clearly. I think, right, okay, I'm going to, let's play something. And did this every night, and it built up, and I intentionally, I'll share this with you, I just see I switch between jazz, classical, and I'd obviously improvise the jazz things, and I'd find less well-known pieces, like the Nacht und Träume I played was for Lynn Harold did cello arrangements with me because his father was the baritone Mac Harold, and so I did that for Lynn because I think that was and at certain days, and the only day, June 2nd was the Blackout Tuesday, and none of us did any music that day actually, so I didn't do anything that day, but went all through 2020
Wow.
and 2021.
That's an incredible list.
And I don't think they're all listed down here. Nearly, maybe. Oh, I haven't finished the gap. So I did go up to 400.
Wow.
And which was weird time, because sadly my poor dad, who'd been alone, of course, my mum passed away, and I was going back and forth a lot to their home in Walmer in Kent, and sometimes I'd pre-record 3 or 4,
Right.
so I could tie in a plane, and knowing there was no piano at my parents' house, and then I rented a little upright to put there, and the last few, the very last one, I then took my dad into the emergency room. It was very sad. He was getting more and more frail, and I said, right, we're going to record this. Hello everyone, this is the 400th, and I think, and then the doctor was there saying, right, now he's got to go to the emergency room. And he hung on till September,
Right.
that year, and but the most personal thing was that, in fact, my dad was a retired, very well-known film cameraman. Terrible self-promotion mode, so modest, and he worked on many big films and had never filmed me, ever. And here he was holding, he was 93, holding my phone,
So
he said, now, where's the frame and where's the, right, move that plant and put that light, because he was a lighting cameraman to start with, and I thought, this is great, and he holds the phone rock solid, and I can't bring myself to watch some of these. I don't watch my own recordings anyway, but and he said, bravo, and he loves Hoagie Carmichael and Artie Shaw, so I played lots of those things, and I would just bring over batches of remote sort of composers things, some 4 I hadn't played or whatever it may be, and I'd say, right, I'm going to look at this, and I'd say, hello, welcome to soiree number 390, whatever, and so it was a nice routine. It made me keep going,
Yeah.
I wasn't giving up over anything drastic like that, but it was nice to have that work regime, and most of these things, they're all on Facebook and YouTube. And
I should definitely check those out and point my listeners to check them out as
you.
well. Well, it's nice. Yeah. It is nice. And I think we're only starting to realise now how much creativity went on during that period sometimes, because people weren't having to jump on planes all the time. They weren't able to jump on planes because the gigs were cancelled anyway. Yeah. So
it was a nice period of obviously an alien world, but it felt. It was selfishly, I needed that time to get over my poor old mum, and I thought, good, I'd rather not be,
Yeah.
It's nice to keep your mind active, but it's keeping and making music. I realised that my wife she's well aware that I'll say I feel guilty for playing the piano. It's very strange. I love it so much. It's like, such fun here. I shouldn't be doing this. I should be washing up and mining and whatever. And I don't. I need to play more. So
it's probably good for your soul. She probably knows that if you didn't, you'd be a horrible person to be around.
After that playing, I don't want to beat you with that stick anymore. That's wonderful. She go play. It's true. Yeah.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic. So, what are your do you have a big project on, or what are your plans for the coming few weeks, months?
Well, I'm looking forward to starting this teaching.
Yes,
position.
of course.
Yeah, I have to iron a shirt and put my elbow pads on my jackets, and.
Well, they like the fact that you're British. Do you play that accent up sometimes?
No, I don't mean to. I don't know. It's a lovely building in Maryland. Fantastic facilities and concert halls of all shapes and sizes for everything from black box theatres, ballet, opera theatre, recital hall, symphony halls, and I had given some masterclasses there a couple of times, and they offered me this position, which is lovely, and okay, well, and it's about 3 hours from my home, so
Right.
it's a easy commute, and I guess I'm just grateful that people do understand me. There are certain, I mean, I'm always learning.
Yeah.
Even after being there all this time, my wife used the word respite. And I was, respite? What's that?
I mean respite.
Respite.
Yes.
But they'll say despite, but not respite. It's respite.
Right.
Spelled like respite.
Yeah.
I said, why? And little and druthers. Do you know that word, druthers?
Druthers,
Like
no.
brothers with a D at the front.
No.
If I had my druthers, I would buy a huge house. If money were no object. It's if I had my druthers. Another.
Never heard that.
I know. And I was saying, what's that? And she's from Kentucky, Jackie, and so she's got a wonderful southern accent, and people tease her for sounding English. And I can't tell, but anyway. But these little turns of phrase, and I look it up and think, good heavens, druthers! Sorry, I take it back. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really funny that considering you've been in America for so long, you don't have a touch of an American accent.
Well, mighty kind of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh no, I can't do it. American accent saving my life. Well, it's who knows?
And you've got a son? Is he musical?
He is, of course, an absolute genius. Yes. Jasper, he's 17 now, and he's played the drums for a long time, about 10 years, and is serious about it. It's lovely.
Oh, good.
And I have a jazz trio with Adam Nussbaum and Gene Perlin over there, and Adam's very kind and gives Jasper little tips and little gadgets and drum heads and Jasper loves listening to all styles of things, and
Fantastic.
the curse of Spotify, I'm afraid, is good for him, because I'll just tell him, play this track for a minute, and I'll just something pop into my head and he'll listen, and especially in the drummer worlds, and I'm learning things, because then it'll say, if you like this, then you must try that.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
That
is the good thing about Spotify, is that it will take you down that rabbit hole of things that you would otherwise never listen to. So,
and in the older days, you think, that means finding that album in a second-hand shop, or buying it from Smiths.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so there's no excuse for not listening to lots of music, is there?
No, absolutely. Oh, well, fantastic. But thank you for joining me. It's been really,
absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. It's the Earl Grey tea did all the talking, I think.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation with Simon Mulligan. What you're listening to now is Simon's performance of Piano Montugno for Bill Sussman, which is just a lovely piece of music, and it connects Bill Sussman, who is a great friend of Harmonious World. So I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation. There are lots more coming up. I've got some really great guests lined up through the autumn and into the winter. And of course there's the EFG London Jazz Festival, which is coming up. I hope to be covering some of those on my blog and on the new Substack channel. But thank you for joining me once again for Harmonious World. Have a great week. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.